This is Matthew Kratter's Bitcoin University. Today I want to talk about how to gaslight like Bitcoin Core. Bitcoin Core, of course, has two meanings. There's Bitcoin Core, meaning the people, the devs who work on Bitcoin Core software. And then there's Bitcoin Core, which refers to the main software implementation that these people work on, the main software implementation of the Bitcoin consensus rules. Now, Bitcoin Core is the software that you would have traditionally chosen if you wanted to run a Bitcoin node. But now many Bitcoin node runners are switching from running Bitcoin Core software to Bitcoin NOTs software because Bitcoin Core devs have recently in 2025 gone off the deep end and seem intent on doing everything they can to enable more spam on Bitcoin. And because of this, Bitcoiners have been fleeing Bitcoin Core in droves. If we look a year ago, this is a chart of the historical number of Bitcoin NOTs nodes that are being run. And if we look a year ago, just last summer of 2024, there were only about 250 Bitcoin NOTs nodes. And today there are over 3,000. If we scroll up here, we can see there are 3,189 Bitcoin NOTs nodes being run, and they currently comprise 14% of the network. So this sort of dumping of Bitcoin Core is completely unprecedented. If you want to learn more about what happened, I'll put a link in the description notes below for this video. Bitcoin Core just went rogue, so you can catch up. But today I wanted to talk about a post by Bitcoin Mechanic that talks about what he calls the narrative evolution in the political battle to undermine Bitcoin as a monetary network. And he has lots of different steps here, sort of the steps of gaslighting that Bitcoin Core has taken us through. I wanted to talk about mainly the first two today. So let's begin with number one. Number one, there's no such thing as quote unquote spam in Bitcoin. Transactions are either valid or invalid. This is something we see with Jameson Lopp, where he talks about in this post from April of this year. He says Bitcoin resists censorship. Those who believe in quote unquote spam can be successfully quote unquote filtered are living in denial. So here he puts spam in quotation marks as if it's something that no one knows what it is. No one really knows what spam is. And yet he has articles out there like this one, for example. Bitcoin has many rules that make the network resistant to spam, though it doesn't completely prevent it. So for some reason here in this post, Jameson seems to know what spam is. He doesn't put it in scare quotes, but in the previous post, another post, he claims a sort of linguistic nihilism where he has no idea really what spam is, and he's making fun of people who think they can identify spam. And then, of course, he writes articles about how the Bitcoin network has done a pretty good job historically of mitigating spam attacks. People like to play these linguistic games and pretend that we don't know what Bitcoin spam is, but I think it's pretty clear it's non-monetary data like this. This is spam, this is non-monetary, and this is stuff that I don't want to see on the Bitcoin blockchain. And I especially don't want to see it on there because crypto VCs are profiting from it. So that's point number one, where they play this linguistic game. Oh, we don't know what spam is, and if you think you know what spam is, and then of course they'll let it slip that they actually do know what spam is. Number two, the next stage in this gaslighting, number two is, okay, spam exists and it's a problem, but it'll get priced out by genuine monetary activity. This is something you hear a lot as well. We'll do another post from Jameson here. The only way to slow spam, and here again, he knows what spam is mysteriously. He doesn't have to put in scare quotes. The only way to slow spam is to encourage more sovereign use of Bitcoin to raise the price of block space and price out low value use cases, meaning spam use cases. Now, simply asserting something like this certainly doesn't make it true. And I think the analogy I've used before, if you allow pimps and drug dealers to take over a neighborhood, the neighborhood and the people who live there will change for the worse over time. But when it comes to Bitcoin, according to people like Jameson, we can supposedly let Bitcoin Core blow open all the filters, let scammers from Ethereum land come to Bitcoin and fill up blocks with spam, and yet somehow in the future, people opening and closing Lightning channels on the base layer are going to magically price out spammers these spammers are able to make thousands, sometimes millions of dollars putting spam on Bitcoin and selling it. We can see here the highest price ever paid for a Bitcoin inscription, almost 25 Bitcoin, which at the time was over $1 million. So this is the problem, asserting that monetary uses on Bitcoin will price out spam. The problem is when the spam gets gamified as it has been, then there's no guarantee that this will happen. If you're enjoying this video so far, I'll just pause really briefly here to ask you to please help to support this channel. Hit the subscribe button, that does really help. Leave a like, leave a comment, question, suggestion for a future video, and share this video with a friend or family member. So the question, will monetary uses of Bitcoin price out spam eventually? I certainly hope so, but is hope really a strategy? And what if Jameson Lopp is wrong about this too? I mean, he is the same guy who added Casa support for Ethereum right after Ethereum moved to proof of stake and began its horrible descent. And while he was busy onboarding Ethereum customers, I was desperately trying to warn people away. I talked about here at the merge, Ethereum successfully castrates itself. That's basically what it did by moving from proof of work to proof of stake. And then this rather unkind video, Casa adds support for morons, meaning Ethereum people. So this is the thing, just because someone's a good coder doesn't mean that they understand economics or even understand what's going on in the crypto ecosystem. This was when the merge happened about mid-September of 2022, and then it was about a couple months later that Casa added support for Ethereum, and it's been straight down ever since. And the people who followed his example and his leadership in the community and were holding Ethereum got completely wrecked at Jameson's own company. So just because someone's good at coding doesn't mean that they understand the first thing about markets, economics, incentives, or even basic human nature. So do we really want to take a chance about monetary uses of Bitcoin eventually being able to price out spam transactions, especially when the same people who are asserting this are playing the linguistic game of not really knowing what spam is in some posts and knowing what spam is in other posts, and yet this spam, not spam, is going to be priced out by monetary uses of Bitcoin. And the other strange thing we've been seeing in the last few weeks and months, why this sudden about face when it comes to spam, especially when it comes to the way Bitcoin Core approaches spam, because Bitcoin culture itself has always been hostile to spam from the days of Satoshi through the op return wars of 2014, which we've spoken about before on this channel. So the real question is, why did Bitcoin Core's approach to spam change so drastically from 2023 to the present? Is someone getting bribed? Are Bitcoin Core devs spending a bit too much time in the same social circles that include crypto startup scammers who are trying to turn Bitcoin into Ethereum? Do Bitcoin Core devs even use their own product? Do any of them actually run nodes? Or is working on Bitcoin Core just another day job for many of them? I made this video, which I'll link to in the description notes below, asking, do Bitcoin Core devs even run their own nodes? And there's some good evidence that most of them do not. As Michael Dunworth posts here, this is the mindset talking about Bitcoin Core devs. And I don't know if this is true, but Michael's certainly been around a long time in Bitcoin and has good standing in the community. And so I think he's heard some stuff. I want to pass this on to you in this post. This is the mindset they, meaning Bitcoin Core devs, they're all just too weak to speak because their income depends on it, be it sponsorship, professional opportunity, and reputation, etc. It's sad, feel for them. Cooking up 8 different hand-wavy stories, motivations that change on a per argument basis for why various filters like the op return should have been blown wide open. Cooking up 8 different hand-wavy stories based on what time of day it is. And I think that is quite striking, the weakness of the arguments that have been put forward by Bitcoin Core. And then Michael goes on to write, not one argument stands up for removing filters, quite literally, or how the process to do so went down. This is a very important thing. How does Bitcoin Core make these process decisions? It's like turning a blind eye due to their corporate requirements, and they think it's goodwill to toe the line, even if it's the antithesis of what brought them to Bitcoin in the first place. And then I think the most important part of this post, which is why I'm sharing it with you or resharing it, this is what Michael asserts here. A handful of them, meaning Bitcoin Core devs, have blown themselves up with leverage, not disclosed to their audiences, and need to get out of a hole. Their journey, their choices keep stacking. So this is the allegation, at least, that a lot of the Bitcoin Core devs, in addition to not even using their own software and not understanding basic economics when it comes to competing things like Ethereum, but they've also made some bad choices and they don't have as much Bitcoin as perhaps they should have if having been in the space as long as they have. I imagine, based on this, if this is true, many of us have a lot more Bitcoin than most people working at Bitcoin Core. Again, Bitcoin Core is not a monolith, but when we hear the people speak, sort of the spokespeople, that's who we're talking about here. Bitcoin culture has always been anti-spam. I'll put a link to this in the description notes below, as well as a link to this video about why I'm running Bitcoin Knots and why you should as well. If you want to join this movement, if you want to become part of the Bitcoin Knots node count, I will put a link both to this video as well as to all these resources that will teach you how you can spin up your own Bitcoin Knots node. You can do it using a mini PC, do-it-yourself version, or you can buy a Start9 server, or you can buy one of these, you can buy a mini PC and flash it with StartOS and run a Bitcoin node on there, and also run a Lightning node, run your own instance of mempool.space. And there are lots of great things you can do with the Start operating system. So I'll put a link to these resources below so you can catch up if you're interested in also running your own Bitcoin Knots node. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.